Joining me now are two members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Karen Bass of California is the chair of the CBC, who joins us from Los Angeles. And Congressman Donald McEachin of Virginia is also in CBC leadership. He has also been an important player and participant in Virginia politics going back to the mid-90s. Welcome to both of you. Congressman McEachin, let me start with you. I know you've called for his resignation. Is there anything he can do that would somehow convince you to give him more time in office?
No, and I consider Ralph a friend. We were elected to the state senate at the same time. But look, he's lost the authority to lead. He's lost the authority to govern. He has to resign. It's in the best interest of the Commonwealth. It's in the best interest of the party.
Congresswoman Bass, why is this so important nationally in your mind for Governor Northam to go?
Well, because I think he's been completely dishonest and disingenuous. He knew this picture was there, and he could have come clean and talked to African Americans that he's close to decades ago. And I think given the overall climate around race in this country, especially over the last 2 years, it's completely unacceptable. The good news is, though, is that there is a zero tolerance, and people do understand, and he needs to resign immediately to stop the pain in Virginia and, frankly, around the nation.
Congresswoman Bass, I want to follow up, though, on something that Governor Northam himself said yesterday. He was making the case that if he quickly left office, then this gets swept under the rug and we don't have a conversation. He's trying to make the case that somehow him staying in office, that in some ways it's the harder thing to do, and it forces a conversation that we don't normally have on race. What do you say to that?
No, he's forcing the wrong conversation. What he should do is resign, and then if he has any integrity at all, he should participate in that conversation. You know, he was completely disingenuous when he talked about he didn't understand this in 1984 and that this was commonplace. He's basically saying that he participated in it, and especially when he described the time that he did the Michael Jackson impression. He even acted at the press conference like he was willing to moonwalk until his wife stopped him, which shows that he still does not understand the seriousness of his actions.
Congressman McEachin, have you talked with Governor Northam in the last 48 hours? And if so, what's his explanation to you?
I haven't spoken to him since Friday, I believe. And at that time, he was apologetic for having been in the photograph and that sort of thing. So I was really surprised when the next day he comes out and says it's not him. That was quite a surprise to me.
I want to play something else that he said, Congressman McEachin, and that is he was talking about the climate of the 80s where he grew up. Here he is, Governor Northam.
While I did not appear in this photo, I am not surprised by its appearance in the EVMS yearbook. In the place and time where I grew up, many actions that we rightfully recognize as abhorrent today were commonplace.
Congressman McEachin, this is 1 year before the state of Virginia made history at that time and elected the first African-American statewide office holder in Doug Wilder as lieutenant governor in 1985. 1964, that would have made sense to me. 1984, in Eastern Virginia, this is the son of a judge and a school teacher, mind you. Is that an explanation that you can accept?
No, my family's been from Virginia, and I've lived in the Richmond area since 3rd grade. And I can tell you that, to the best of my knowledge, it was not commonplace in 1984. But let's assume, without conceding, that it was indeed commonplace. Slavery was commonplace. That doesn't make it right. Massive resistance was commonplace. That doesn't make it right. Jim Crow was commonplace. That didn't make it right. And so, too, if blackface was commonplace in 1984, that doesn't make it right. And Ralph should have known better.
Congresswoman Bass, I'm sure you, and I'm sure some Virginia Democrats feel this way, the fact that he won't leave, everybody, as I said, I think there's only two people technically that haven't called for his resignation on the Democratic side of the aisle, former President Obama and the current Lieutenant Governor, which both, it's understandable. He would directly benefit, so he's been hesitant to fully call for the resignation. What else, what other ways are there to get him out of office?
Well, I mean, I think that's up to the legislators, but I believe that they can impeach him, and I think that that is a perfect example of extending the pain. If he was sincere at all, he would recognize the pain that he has caused. But the way he described 1984, I mean, that is just so not true. 1984 was a time of great hope. We were hopeful that we would have the first black president. That was in the middle of Jesse Jackson's campaign, in the middle of the anti-apartheid movement. So he basically has shown that he is not honest. He's disingenuous. He needs to resign. And if he has any way that he wants to regain his integrity, he would resign and then participate in the discussion.
You know, Congressman McEachin, it seems clear to me that Governor Northam thinks, wait a minute, does my record in public service count at all? That his argument is, look what his first executive order was expanding what is discrimination in the state of Virginia. And that his explanation is when it's counted, he's been on the right side of these issues. Where does that fit in here as you make these determinations about his future?
You know, we're certainly grateful for the contributions he's made to the betterment of Virginia. But the question now is can you lead? Can you help us heal? And given the actions that he's demonstrated over the past 48 hours, the answer is clearly no. It can't be you in the photograph one day and then it's not the next day. You can't excuse it all and say, oh, I know that I didn't do blackface in this yearbook because I did it in a Michael Jackson dance contest. And by the way, I don't know if anybody heard it besides me, but his notion that you can't get polish off your face easily suggests to me that that was not the first time that he had tried blackface. So.
That jumped out at me too, Congressman. It was something I was going to bring up with the panel later. But yeah, you're sitting there going, that was why do you have such familiarity with it?
Exactly.
But excuse me, but he has also been inconsistent. So he was great after Charlottesville in terms of the Confederate monuments, and then he backtracked on that and said, well, maybe we shouldn't get rid of them. Maybe it should be a local decision. He's been inconsistent.
Congressman McEachin, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about the Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax. There's some poetic justice, perhaps, if he becomes the next governor. The day before he took the oath to be a lieutenant governor, his father had done some research in his family trees and found the manumission papers that freed his ancestors. And it says this from at the time. He said, it was the manumission papers for my 3 greats ago grandfather Simon Fairfax in 1798. And he was freed by the 9th Lord Fairfax. And so as I raised my right hand to take the oath of office as lieutenant governor of Virginia, I had in my breast pocket the papers that freed my 3 greats ago grandfather. His surname comes from his descendant's slave owner. That poetic justice to you, Congressman?
It is a wonderful story that Justin has, and he has been a fantastic lieutenant governor. He's been a fantastic public servant. And should he ascend to the governorship, he will be a fantastic governor. And, you know, I want America to remember that this is the 400th anniversary of Africans coming to the shores of Jamestown in chains. And so the look of that commemoration service combined with a governor that's been talking about blackface and misleading us about blackface is not the look that I think Virginia wants to portray to the nation.
Congressman McEachin, Congresswoman Bass, thank you both for coming on this